From talking to a lot of you on this channel, here's what I've learned. A ton of people have facial asymmetry, and nobody likes it. It makes you look worse. It can make you insecure. It gives you problems with your posture and your body. You look uneven in photos. It can even make you breathe unevenly through both sides of your nostril. But worst of all, if you try to do mewing while you have asymmetry, you could just make the asymmetry worse. Most cases of facial asymmetry, in my opinion, happen because of an uneven pressure of the tongue. One side of the tongue pushes more on your upper palate than the other, and that side becomes the better developed side. Basically, from mewing unevenly. However, there's another type of tongue pressure that doesn't very often get discussed that I believe is equally or even more important, and that is your swallowing pattern. Your swallowing pattern is just that, a pattern, but it's one that you repeat hundreds of times per day and thousands of times per week. And if you could begin to even out this swallowing pattern, you could also mew more evenly and begin to fix your facial asymmetry. Let me explain. Whether you're aware of it or not, that swallowing pattern is having an effect on the way you look and on your health. Every time you swallow, two very important things are happening. One is that your tongue is exerting a force. In an ideal swallowing pattern, that force is up on your upper palate, reinforcing your upper arch and encouraging the proper facial development. There's a second important thing that happens. Every time you practice this swallowing pattern, you are further ingraining this habit. So it's more likely you're going to swallow this way the next time, the time after that, and the hundreds of times in the future. Mewing and your swallowing pattern are directly related. If you take someone with ideal facial development, as in somebody who looks good, they've been mewing their whole life, they have wide upper arches, they also most likely have an ideal swallowing pattern. The ideal swallowing pattern is when the tongue is sort of lightly suctioned to the roof of the mouth. When the person goes to swallow, the tongue presses firmly against the outside of the upper palate, all the way along the teeth, even towards the back part of the palate. So the entire tongue pushes up, and that initiates the swallow. This is why if you look at someone who has a difficult time mewing, they won't be able to swallow correctly because the tongue is not on the upper palate. So it's very hard to get their tongue to press up to initiate that swallow. So instead, the tongue will come forward or laterally between the teeth, and then they will use their lips and cheeks to initiate that swallowing pattern. Another way to think of this is that the resting tongue posture, or the way that you mew, is the starting position for how you swallow. So if we go back to asymmetry now, that means if one side of your tongue is resting more on the upper palate than the other, when you go to swallow, that side is automatically going to dominate that swallow because it's already pushing up, and the other side is not used to pushing up. So now you have this pattern where every time you swallow, one side of your tongue is pushing up on the palate and the other one isn't. Using myself as an example, the right side of my tongue pushes up more and the right side of my face is better developed. What I noticed is every time I would swallow, my tongue would be firmly pressing against my upper palate on the right side, especially towards the back teeth. So I was swallowing more with the right side. And on the left side, it kind of felt like just the front portion was pushing up and the back wasn't. The question is, where was the back of the left side of my tongue going? And the answer is probably between my teeth. Can you imagine? I was swallowing this way hundreds of times per day since I was a little kid, creating a situation where I was exerting more force on the right side. The right side looked better. I breathed better through that side for my entire life. You could argue that it's because of this pattern that I learned at a very young age and continued on subconsciously. Really quick, let's pause for a moment so you can do a test at home. This is called a forced swallow. You take the tip of your thumb, put it between your teeth, separate your lips like you're smiling, and swallow. Make sure your head is in an upright position and not slouched forward. And you want to notice which side of your tongue seems to push up more. Especially pay attention to the back part of your palate and notice if one side feels like it pushes further back along your palate than the other side. Now the question is, How do we fix this? We need to get the weak side of the tongue pressing up on the palate in the same way as the stronger side. We need to make it so that every time you swallow, the weak side of your tongue is pushing up against your palate along the back part of your molars rather than pressing between your teeth. To do this, there are generally 2 steps that I take to improve this for myself, and I generally recommend to others. The first is to use myospots. Myospots stick against your upper palate and they essentially train your tongue. What I'll generally do is I'll put one just above tooth number 3 and tooth number 7. It basically sends a message to your tongue that there's something on your palate, and your tongue essentially goes up to meet that myospot. The reason to use myospots is now the entire left side of my tongue would be pushing up on my palate just at rest. So it's essentially like a cheat code for mewing evenly. Now the left side of my tongue is pushing up just like the right, and when I go to swallow, because my tongue's already there, it's gonna push against my palate on the back part of my left side of my tongue rather than pushing between the teeth. I can't take full credit for this because Dr. Shiv Faragella, who's actually the founder of myospots and a dentist out of Australia, is the one who originally showed this to me, and it really made a big difference for me. Now, while the myospot's in there for the next hour or so, you will be swallowing more evenly. Once that myospot dissolves and it's no longer up there, you'll notice, probably, because this is what I've noticed, is that now the tongue is swallowing more evenly even while it's not there, and that's because you've practiced a new pattern, it's getting subconsciously ingrained, and now there's a certain momentum for that pattern, so it's going to continue on into the future. And if you keep doing that day after day after day, eventually you'll start to swallow with a more even pattern. There is one more thing that you can do that will help you to improve your asymmetry even faster and be even more effective, and that is to improve the asymmetry in your head and neck and the rest of your body. What I notice in myself and others, almost always whenever there's an asymmetry in the tongue and in the jaw, it also follows into the head and the neck and the posture. Basically, the entire spine is interconnected, so any change in one area of the spine will be reflected in the other areas as well to keep a balance. What I've generally noticed is the weaker side of the tongue will have more forward head posture. For me, the left side is not pushing up as much, my tongue, and the left side of my head is further forward. So if you looked in a photo, probably on one side you have more forward head posture than on the other side. I've noticed this pattern in many people as well. When the head is further forward, it makes it harder for the tongue to function on that side. We want to even out that posture of the head and neck, and we want to make it so that on that weak side you have less forward head posture. To do this, there's a series of stretches that I recommend giving a try. I've made another video about that I'll link to. So you do these stretches and that begins to free your head so it's no longer locked in this forward position. What you'll notice is that the better the posture of your head, the easier it is for your tongue to work on that side where it hasn't been able to properly. I presented this in a bit of a backwards order just for the sake of this video. Basically what you want to do is you start by doing the stretches. You start by evening out the position of the head and neck. Then after that you put the myospots in to train your tongue to push up where it's supposed to, and then you're going to practice swallowing more correctly while the myospot is up there. Just by going about your day, you will swallow a certain number of times per hour. Over time you will learn a more balanced swallowing pattern, which will carry with you into the future. So since I've been doing this, I've noticed a huge difference. Something that I haven't been completely consistent with, but whenever I notice my asymmetry getting worse, I just do this for a few days and I automatically notice an improvement. Thank you for watching this video. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. But if you do these exercises, I would appreciate it if you leave a comment and let me know how they go. I always like to hear people's progress and hear if these exercises work for other people as well. So yeah, thanks for watching the video and we'll see you in the next one.